Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Check 1, 2.
Yes. Check 1, 2.
So you missed the feast yesterday.
Oh, I bet I did.
It was very tasty. I purchased a grill for my graduation party, but it was a secret Father's Day gift to my brother. So I made him cook the dinner and then I gave it to him. Sounds like a res trick.
Yeah. Tricked him to... Well, you didn't trick him. You, made him cook dinner, and he's probably just going to keep cooking on there.
Well, he kept saying whenever I move, he's going to have to buy a grill. He was telling Kobe. He didn't know that I intended on giving it to him because we were borrowing Donna's.
Oh.
Borrowing Donna's grill for a while. Because we had one when we lived here previously, but that was, of course, that grill was probably 15 years old, and I don't know where it went, probably in the trash. So I had planned on getting one last summer, and we ended up with just a small charcoal. So I bit the bullet and bought like a $250 gas grill, big one, so that way we could feed the tribe.
Nice.
When need be. Feed the little tribe down here of all your family. So yeah, it was a good little celebration. We just kind of small, with everything going on. It was just the neighbor, Donna and her crew, and Tina and Mo and Jess. That was really all that was there. Melita was going to come, but they have a wake going on for the little baby over there.
Oh, yeah.
So she wasn't able to make it. But I did see her. I seen her in Martin whenever I was getting last-minute food for the picnic. So I have all these leftovers. I have a huge thing of potato salad and I have some pasta salad and hamburgers and hot dogs left over. We demolished all the steak, of course. I did steak and smoked sausage and hot dogs and burgers and brats, and it was a good time.
Yeah,
no traditional food. I wanted to do traditional food, but I figure when I do my big party, eventually, I'll do soup and fried bread and wojapi and stuff like that, as well as grilling out and whatever. Oh, we had ribs too, Rusty smoked some ribs, and
yum.
So it was good.
That
it was
sounds
a
so
big
good.
variety. So how's life in California with coronavirus?
Well, I mean, it's still raging, but we're kind of... Honestly, we've been in it for so long. We've started to open up our circle of friends. So we don't actively go out or anything, but we do spend time with people. We went camping with 3 other people, so we're being we're doing stuff now, not aggressively, but
yeah, which is understandable. It's so hard when it's summertime, and
it's been
around here. It's been really difficult. I think the reservation is up to 50 some cases, 54, I think.
Yeah.
So, which, I mean, we're just now getting cases, and it's June, so we've been kind of taking precautions since March.
So
that
long.
That kind of shows how, demographically it's traveling. I mean, out here, it's taking longer to get here because we're kind of out, but we'll see what happens. We've actually had a lot of deaths in our community, but none are COVID related.
Yeah.
So, some young guys passed away, cirrhosis.
Oh, no.
A guy younger than me, I was like, dang. It's one of the second guys that's younger than me that I know that died of alcoholism. Pretty, kind of intense when you think about it.
That
Must
had,
have lived a really,
yeah.
I mean, imagine, you know, to be that young, your body is usually equipped to still be fighting stuff at that age. You know, I mean, I could see someone who may be in their 60s battling with cirrhosis and not making it, but then again, they probably shouldn't even be getting cirrhosis. Part of it, though, like we discussed, is diet. They don't have a good diet, and then you mix that with alcoholism, and yeah, it's just a deadly combination.
Yeah, all the other. I mean, it's interesting. The whole world is like dying of this rare disease, but on the res, everybody's just dying as often as they did before of all the previous
And
issues.
there has been, I think, a few of them that have died of corona, but mostly they've been like in hospice in Rapid City, places like that. And most of the time it's been people with pre-existing illness. So we're just, you know, hoping and praying that everything just continues to be safe here. The roadblocks are still in place. Not necessarily blocks. I guess I shouldn't call them blocks. They're more like checkpoints. And so they check the traffic coming in and out, which I think is, you know, kind of a good idea anyway if they invested in like toll booths or something for the future.
Yeah.
Because I think, one, it could help maintain roads on the reservation, kind of create its own revenue. And two, it would also help, you know, get an idea of the amount of traffic that's seen. And if we were to write for grants for roads, we would have some form of data analysis to back the grant writing process.
Yeah, and you actually don't know. I mean, there's people come to visit Wounded Knee, but then there's no one there like taking the numbers of how many visitors there are. Or...
Right. Yep, that's right. And they should have some sort of, you know, because that's all data that could be used. I mean, imagine if they had, you know, to pay a fee. You pay a fee to do so many other things in the world. You pay a fee to walk out on a pier in North Carolina. Yeah. You know, things like that, you know, just normal everyday sites for people here that could create a, you know, basically like an internal revenue to help fuel the tribe, or maybe give to the districts in the area. There's definitely possibility. I've always been focused on that. Hopefully someday I could get my point across and people will understand. Before, when I was younger and I would talk about it, people would look at me like I was crazy, like I was too far out there. And I'm like, no, you don't understand what I mean. Put up a toll booth. We all drive through. If we all had to pay a quarter every time we drove through, all that money, you know, adds up, and we could fix our roads. We wouldn't have to depend on the tribe. Then the tribe could use that budget for something, give it back to the communities. So it's been interesting, though, because we have 20 families quarantined within my district now.
Wow.
There's a few positive cases within my community area, and so it's very close now. It's all just trying our hardest to not be exposed to it. Or for Indians, that's really difficult because we live a different type of community lifestyle than a lot of other people in the country. I mean, we live really intertwined amongst each other. Families are all connected. And even, you know, goes down to our spiritual ways. You know, there's going to be no Sundance. Well, there has been a Sundance gone on in Thunder Valley. But pretty much the other ones that are really big that, you know, people come from out of state, they're not having any kind of dancing this year. Which I think is probably good. Maybe, you know, keeping people safe.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you never know if someone's carrying the disease, and what if they come back for good intentions, but that kind of turns for the worst, you know? That wouldn't be very good.
No.
Sort of defeat the purpose of the ceremony, because, you know, we all smoke the pipes and stuff, and it's real, you know, we've always lived that way. We shared out of the same dishes and things like that in our ceremonies. Like, we all smoke the pipe, we all drink out of the water and the juice, the cherry juice, and we all eat from the bowl with the wasna with our hands, you know. So think we're having to take a break from that. And it's going to have its effects, both negative and positive. But I see an ultimate reinforcement coming there. I think it'll reinforce people whenever we start doing it again. The appreciation will help intensify the ceremonies and intensify people's, their personal beliefs. And they'll feel good about what they're doing instead of it being almost routine.
Yeah, I heard people talk about, I've heard people say, like, the art, people who don't understand how disease works, saying that, well, if you really believed in the ceremonies, then you wouldn't be scared of going to them. But that's so like, that you can believe in something and believe in the healing power of medicine without, like, putting your families at risk. It's like,
yeah,
it's not a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I understand that part too, and I think that way myself, but I also know that the power of it all you don't have to necessarily be within a ceremony to have your prayers answered or to say prayers for your family. And I think that taking a break from it all, essentially there's a purpose behind all of that. And as like the Indian people, for us, we have to remember that when we do those things, we're doing it for the betterment of our people. And if we do it during times of pandemic, when a virus could potentially spread through physical contact, I think, we have to step back and say, maybe even with our faith, that, is it a battle between our faith and a virus? I don't know how that would end. It could have, positive or negative outcomes.
Yeah.
We could say, we gathered during this pandemic and none of us got sick. That's a miracle, and that is possible. But then also, people could come together in faith and still maybe the virus is going to out. Maybe the whole point of it is for all of us to step back for a moment to help kind of reflect, give the energy a break maybe, and then as the world heals, come back together. But again, that's just my perspective.
Yeah.
That's kind of like where I see it from my standpoint. I'm applying for a new position. I don't know if I told you that. I'm applying for the enrollment management director now that I have my bachelor's degree.
Nice.
So I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping it would just be a really smooth, easy transfer over, because it would be from where I'm currently to the main building, and it would have my own office. I would be in charge of admissions and recruitment, and speaking about OLC and OLC's mission, which I feel I would definitely have some strong advantages there.
Yeah, that would be great. And I'm sure you get a pay raise and everything too.
Oh yeah. It would be way more than where I'm at right now. I'm kind of at the very low end because I'm in the bookstore, so that's kind of entry level. And being that I have my bachelor's, it would be clearly obvious. Which that was a good celebration yesterday. I'm glad that even in this pandemic, I have a few relatives that we could still gather and enjoy a meal.
Yeah, that
and
is
gather
good.
together and pray, and because doing those things is still good. But these are all people that live within our own community, so nobody's coming from anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be considered safe, I believe.
What you were saying about, like, taking a break, I feel like, because I was thinking about how the theme for this piece that we're doing is lullaby, because they're talking about how it's a lull in, like, a break, a pause in the world. Well, for some people, it's kind of interesting that this, like, they picked the theme about talking about a lull, but then the world, like, flared up and it kind of was the opposite of a lull.
Yeah,
the past
few
few weeks.
Bias and, all the things that are going on.
Yeah.
And out here, it's, you know, people are very either this way or that way. There's really no, we don't have a lot of outside influence here in our general everyday lives. I mean, through media and such, but South Dakota, we're kind of always been a little bit behind time. So with all of this going on in the world and stuff, it's kind of crazy. You know, we're here, kind of in the middle of the country in a way, you know, kind of secure from all of that chaos. But as the waves come towards us, you know, that's slowly as we're going to start being affected now with this virus and stuff. People coming to see Mount Rushmore, to see crazy horse. I mean, the Black Hills are a beautiful place. They're like, just, I don't blame people for wanting to come here and see that because it's beautiful. It could totally change somebody's perspective. They come out here, they see the open country, they see the hills, Needles Highway, Black Elk Peak, all these different beautiful places where you could just have, you know, complete peace, you know, peace of mind. You could sit within your own silence for a while, you know. So partly it's good that people are still coming here. You know, we need that energy here. We need people's prayers. We need people traveling through. But the world, as a sense, did take a break this year. So that's kind of interesting how this ties in with the peace, because we could all relate right now. We've all been through like a big lull and a break from everything, and now we're all starting to flow again. And now we're flowing, and there's a virus present. So we have to be cautious. We have to protect ourselves. Try not to be, you know, being more aware. You know, try not to be so.
Yeah, I was also thinking that the lull, or like thinking about the theme of lullaby. It's like we were, you know, lullaby to rest and to get to like save your energy. And then out here in LA, we had, you know, I mean, and then not that far away from you in Minnesota, you know, there's like this, all of the protests and people fighting for Black Lives Matter and people fighting for rights, which is, you know, if you think about the police in Rapid City, which are, I can't think of a more terrible police force.
It is. It truly is. And South Dakota's been affected by this racial inequality forever. And you know, who knows if there'll ever be any resolve there. I hope and pray there will. I mean, me personally, growing up being half Indian and half white, you're always seeing it, you know, for what it is, because one, it shouldn't even be there at this point. It's 2020. Why are we still concerned with somebody's skin color? But if we look deeper, like for even Native Americans, for instance, we've been systematically under oppression and genocide for so long that we become our own source in this all. And there are probably people who are Native American who give to the negative side of that with their own prejudices. And I'm not saying they're right or wrong, because I understand how they feel, and I understand what it feels like to be somebody come at you over your race. But especially being half-breed, it's something that people kind of get a sense for both sides. And I understand how the natives feel. I understand how the non-natives feel. My grandma's non-native, and, you know, I always try to look at things from her perspective. But then she was also raised a certain way. You know, she was also experiencing things all in her own perspective. And she has her own views. I can't change that, but I could view everything from from outside of myself and see where people come together here and support things like Black Lives Matter, because even though we do have members of our tribes who are intermixed with African American and other different nationalities. So, you know, in a sense, if you look at the Lakota Mitakuye Oyase, when we say we're all related, in our spiritual beliefs, that's something that we take seriously, because it doesn't matter your skin color, it doesn't matter your race. We're all related.
Yeah.
And
it has to do with maybe how good of a relation you are, because I mean that's what this one her name's Kim Tallbear. She talks about how settlers are bad relations. They're like a family member who's in the family, and they're still our family member, but sometimes your family members are abusive and don't do their part and are bad relations. So it
feeds into it all, and then we end up, like here, South Dakota's racial issues are no surprise to us, especially on the reservation. And there's a lot of racial tensions within this state, and we see it at times whenever, like we had an incident a few years back where some people spilt beer on these kids that were watching a hockey game, and it creates these tension flare-ups within the state. And whenever it happens, you could see the ripple effect. You go to the cities, people look at you, they know you're Native American. They're either going to treat you two ways. They're going to be very good to you, and they're going to treat you really well, or they're not. There's no kind of happy medium. It's just the way it is. And especially right now, and when Standing Rock was going on, it's clearly defined. You see bad things happen in places like Rapid City, like when the Native American guy was spit on trying to get a room, things like that. You see it start to flare up, and maybe Wounded Knee in '73, that was a big standoff. Maybe it'll happen again at some point for standing off for the equal treatment of the Native people within the state of South Dakota, North Dakota, all through the Great Plains area, Montana, Wyoming. These are all places where Native American people were very prevalent, and the last Native American tribes lived here in these areas, and they fought against settlers. They fought against people coming in to take their lands because they were promised these lands under the treaties. So there's that huge racial tension that lies here in South Dakota. And I feel like with everything going on in the world, people may be starting to realize, that this race issue needs to come to a head in some sense, and it needs to be addressed, whether it's good or bad, because we all need to come down to the agreement that we're all people, we're all one. And if we learn to be one and be connected and all balance off of each other, like it says in the prophecies, the Native American prophecies, where we will all come together, maybe that's when we'll start to look past the race issue and start looking at more of a human issue, and how do we heal this? Because it's pain that's there. It's pain that's causing this. It's pain within the Native community. It's pain within the white community. I mean, you think of it in the Black community, all of these communities, all this pain that hasn't been healed. And so when we heal this pain and we come together as one nation and we stand together as brothers and sisters, that's when things change. And that's when the world will start to change. And maybe this lull in everything is going to help influence change for the future generations to come. And maybe we'll change how we treat our planet, how we are aware of, the health of our planet, because that all comes into play with our own health as human beings.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I try to understand why people are so hateful, especially to Native Americans, like especially in Rapid City and in South Dakota, like why they're so hateful. And I think it's because if we want to reach a place of actual relations, like functioning, a good, healthy, functioning relationship, it's like I think all these people know not even that deep in their hearts, but on a very surface level, they know that they're wrong for what they do, and I think they know that the land doesn't belong to them, and they know it, and that's why they're so vile and hateful, is because they know that they are in the wrong, and it's crazy to me that people know that they're wrong, but then they would rather be filled with hatred instead of act to change it.
Because maybe that hatred is just really, a version of their confused pain, trying to learn how to heal and trying to accept the things that may have caused them pain, because that's all a part of healing. We have to learn to accept anything that pains us to heal from it, right?
I mean, and they have to give things. They have to give back what's not theirs, and that's scary. I'm sure, like the idea of paying reparations to the ancestors of slaves. I mean, it's like, oh, I have to lose a material thing in order to gain healing and trust, and like you have to lose the material ownership of the land in order to gain like healing and trust, and people just are rather act out of fear of losing something material instead of fixing the problem.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think it's sad for us sometimes, even as human beings, because some of the things that we face, these challenges, it's all in how we react to them, and how the world is reacting to a virus, how the world is reacting to racism, all these things. That's all going to have an impact on the world's health in general. Because if we look at the world like our own single organism, like if our body was a world, for example, our own health is determined on all these factors. So, is the world's health determined on all these factors like racism and, Black Lives Matter, things like that.
Yeah.
Natives say, we support that. We support Black Lives Matter because we see the racial inequalities for ourselves. We experience them ourselves. So like American Indian movement stands with Black Lives Matters, because in the 70s they had to stand together, and that helped bring a huge change. Here, things on the reservation were hard then. People experienced a lot of bad things that was going on here. And being where we are, where we're located, that, we didn't have a lot of outside influence or people to come and say, hey, they're treating those people wrong. We didn't have that. So American Indian Movement AIM, they came to Wounded Knee and they took a stand there to stand up for our people, to show what was going on here. And like the Oglala people here on Pine Ridge, we were like the last tribe to really settle down. Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull, they kept their people going. They didn't want that. So there is a lot of resistance against the white man's ways here, and it's still being fought. The old people, they stood up for that. They didn't want to be stripped of their culture and their spiritual ways, the things that they did. And a lot of it was unfortunately lost whenever the language was taken.
Do you know when our family stopped speaking fluent Lakota?
Well, I would have to say it would be back from the generations of like the late 1800s down, because like the Stovers married Indian women, or George Stover, he married an Indian woman, and she had a bunch of sisters, and so his kids, they were half-breeds, and they probably spoke both Lakota and English. And I'm assuming that's because their dad would teach them English and their mom spoke to them only in Lakota, because that was their mother and she was a Lakota speaker. And then I think from there on is kind of where it stopped being taught. Our grandma, my grandma, your great-grandma, she didn't stop speaking Lakota till she was 7 or 8. That's when she went to boarding school. And then she never did teach the language to her kids like fluently. She taught them words, and they know a lot of Lakota words and stuff, but she didn't actually like teach them to engage in it. She taught them English, and then would teach them Lakota words so that they would understand those things, but she never taught them to engage in Lakota. So your grandfather, my uncle, he wouldn't have been taught necessarily how to engage in Lakota language, but he's taught to understand a lot of words, different things like that. And then when my generation comes along, like back in the 80s, they started seeing the need to revive the Lakota language, because it was dying off. All of these people that could speak the language were starting to die off, and so that's whenever they started pushing for the grandmothers and stuff to start teaching the young ones to speak the language, the grandkids. And so you see a huge resurgence come back in families where they have a Lakota speaker, and then now the grandmas are teaching, or the grandpas are teaching the grandkids and great-grandkids how to speak the language, in fear that the language may disappear.
Mm-hmm. Who's that?
That's she got hit by a car, so she's having to be quarantined herself on the porch.
Aww.
Can't go back around. So she gets kind of mad.
Aww.
Whenever she sees us outside, she wants to go, but she's almost healed up. She's like about 2 more weeks, and she should be almost healed up.
Good. Did you have a chance? I mean, I have like a vague recollection of the story of the Stover deafness. Like all I remember is that it has to do with there was a judge, and somebody put a curse on the judge to not hear us since he wouldn't listen.
Judge Stover. Yeah, that was that's my great grandfather. So your third great. And he was a judge in Martin. And I did hear a story that there was a case and it was against the Indian, where the Indian was found guilty. And so the family, the mom, told him that she was going to curse him because he wouldn't listen to her son. And that could be where that came about. And so it would occur him, his future generations paid that consequence by the hearing loss. And, that is within the realm of the Native culture, because that wouldn't have been something he would have understood, though. But his children would, because his children were Native, and his children were raised with a mother who was teaching them, the customs of the Lakota people, the way they lived, and that all tied within to certain, you did believe in things like that because it manifested and it was powerful. Mm-hmm. So I think it was sort of like a karmic thing too for him, his future generations. Now in the spirit world, he sees his future generations being affected by him not being able to hear, so he has to see his relatives suffer that as he, for his consequence.
Wow, that's amazing. And he was he's a judge, so he wasn't Indian. He was
he was a white man. Yeah. He was a white man, and he came from, I think, West Virginia. It was a family of like 13 children from West Virginia, and he came out here, and he married Robinson. Her name was Jenny Robinson, I think. Was her name, and she's your third great, my great grandma, and her mother was Susie Shot in the Eye.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. That was her mother or grandmother?
I think it's her mother. Her mother's name was Susan, and she's on the census, but it's really hard to trace because there's no last name. It just has her as Miss Robinson, Susan Robinson.
Awesome.
So
I love those photos.
I'm thinking Susan shot in the eye was either her grandmother or was her. I'm not 100% sure. It's kind of hard to get those records. I don't know why. But that would be the side where your native, that native blood comes down through the Stovers. Because, you know, a Stover name is not a Lakota name, obviously.
Right.
But they are a prominent family on the reservation because they are the descendants of Shot in the Eye. Susie Shot in the Eye.
Cool. We should change our name to Shot in the Eye. It's way cooler.
Right. But then we would lose part of that history. If we did, then people wouldn't ask. You know, because then, you know, people are going to want to ask if your name isn't a Lakota name, you know, then they're going to want to ask where that, you know, how it comes in there. So it gives you the opportunity to be able to tell that story. But I do also think that people should carry on names that come from their family. You know, I've considered it myself, but I haven't decided. But I do think that's cool as well. You know, if you carry on a name from your family tree that hasn't, say somebody didn't have any kids, or you're researching it back and you see like a great-great-grandfather with a really, you know, unique name, I totally think that's cool when people bring those names out today to honor those, you know, ancestors.
Yeah. I wanted to let's talk a little bit about, I don't know, I'm just trying to like work through some of the ideas so we have material. I wanted to talk about, I just wanted to get a description of what it's like in the evenings now out there. Like, I really wish I could come out, and I'll tell you what it's like here in the evening. So in LA, there's constant helicopters as you're trying to go to bed. And then we had all this police, and we had the National Guard out to enforce curfew and to, you know, arrest protesters. And then there's like, there's been this thing where there's constant fireworks. I know you guys are having fireworks problems too, but the fireworks go off like all evening, like all night. Just like, it sounds like gunshots. And it's so disturbing because of all the like street like violence and the police violence. So going to sleep and like the idea of a lullaby is just so much different in Los Angeles right now, because it's like the city doesn't want you to go to bed, or they want you to go inside but not go to bed, like stay inside. But
well, here we have a curfew in place here, so normally in the summertime there would be a lot more action, but it's actually quite peaceful. There's none of what you said.
Yeah.
Not even protesters, I don't think. You know, I mean, we're too small of a community. Everybody's intertwined. What would we really protest? But it's peaceful. It's completely quiet, actually. Around, 9 o'clock is pretty quiet. You might hear a car go by every so often, and that'll be it. You'll hear the frogs and the crickets and the birds and, dogs barking in the distance. Or your own dogs barking if people, are a little too close, like maybe walking on the road or something.
How's the weather? Is it stormy?
It's been a little stormy. Like we got 2 thunderstorms today, but that's like the first really good rain we've had. Most of the time the storms have been skipping around and not really hitting us. But in the evening time, it's nice to watch the lightning like off into the distance. I'll always see storms going to the north or to the south. And it's warm, like good temperature, lots of lightning bugs out. Well, we live on a creek, so there's a lot of lightning bugs, which is really cool.
That's nice.
I really love that about like my location. Being kind of on a creek bottom, you get to hear all the frogs and all the different birds that live in the trees. The owl, of course, the owls. There's like 3 owls that live in these trees down here, so they talk to each other from different locations. It's pretty cool.
It's nice. I think I found an owl feather last weekend. It was just laying in front of me.
Ooh, that's a good sign.
I know. It's really nice. It's like striped.
feed the spirits, and they'll start telling you what they're there for. But I'm sure your grandfather told you that as well.
I know. I've only had weird, just stupid weird dreams after that. Nothing of importance. I was like, oh, maybe I'll have nice dreams, like interesting dreams, but they're just boring.
And they don't have to come to you just in dreams. They can come to you at any time. You just have to be open to see them and to communicate with them. And it may not be in the form that you expect it to be. But if you open your mind to it, they communicate that way. It's kind of like an awkward understanding. You have this understanding, but you can't really explain how it goes.
Maybe I should tell. I don't think I recorded this before, but maybe since I'm recording now, I should tell it, because I told you about the dream when my friend was sick. Okay, so my friend was admitted to the ICU in Montreal, and I was so worried, and so we were all very worried, and I was like praying like a lot, and I put out tobacco, and I left it out. I think on the second night it was out, and it had also been raining, and so the tobacco bowl got like full of water, and then that night when it rained, I had a dream that somebody who I was living with, who like kind of took the form of my roommate, but I knew it wasn't her. It was somebody I lived with in the house. We were outside next to the tobacco bowl, and they asked me, can I smoke this? And I normally, if somebody's like looking to roll tobacco, I obviously absolutely no to tobacco that's out for a reason. Like, you know what I mean? Like I would never agree to let somebody take the tobacco. And so then I agreed. I was like, you can take the tobacco. Of course, you can smoke it. And so they did. They took it and they smoked it. And then when I looked at the bowl in the morning, it had been like rained out. Like the rain had like flooded the bowl. And then I found out soon later that he was going to be okay, maybe like a day or two after that. But it was crazy. It was like I would never agree to that normally unless there was some reason. I don't know.
Like if you look at it from, like maybe like a dream interpretation, it could definitely be, maybe whoever was coming to smoke that in your dream, maybe that was the prayer messenger or the person or the entity or the energy that was answering the prayers. Maybe that's how your dream interpreted that. And then you say he got better. So, maybe that was the reconfirmation, I guess, or reassurance that
it was heard.
Those prayers were being heard, and telling you, that it was gonna, answer them by, because in your dream you're doing something that's not something you would normally do.
Yeah,
right?
I was in total agreement. I mean, the other thing is I feel like it was a female of some sort, and like it was definitely a female. So maybe it was. I mean, Bill always said that, I had a grandmother of some sort there, like nearby. So I mean, I know they live with us, in some capacity. So.
Yeah. Those spirits, those grandmother spirits, a lot of times, they'll manifest like that for young women and stuff because, they need that that nurturing guidance. It plays the role in that nurturing guidance that helps them remain to be compassionate and things like, that's what the grandmothers always teach in the ceremonies. They teach us to have compassion and be compassionate towards each other, to be good to each other, to kind of nurture one another, because that in itself helps heal. It helps people heal. Grandmothers are always kind of you know, you even see it played in movies like that. You know, when someone gets hurt, there's always the almost like a grandmother figure or like a older woman figure that always takes care of the person and gets them back to health. So, you know, spiritually, when the grandma, I think that's kind of what they signify. You know, that nurturing side, maybe that side that we need to remember so that we could take care of ourselves, be nurturing to ourselves and to other people. Maybe, you know, nurture those around us, or someone around us is going through a hard time, so we need to, you know, be cautious of that and to know to kind of nurture them or have compassion for them in whatever it is that they're struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so where did you, I know you know a little bit of the history of that Lakota lullaby.
So, yeah, I mean, the first time I heard that was, I think it's Robert Tree Cody on his album. And I remember hearing that years ago, and it was kind of like, for me, it was in a time when I was really learning to recognize words in Lakota language and kind of like noticed it, you know, what it was saying. And so it really stuck with me because it was one of those songs, like an influence that I've had since back when I was first learning to, you know, recognize and be more adept in my Lakota language.
Can you tell me, can we, like, I just want to write down the lyrics in Lakota, because I was listening and I think I missed some of the words.
Okay, so let's see. What do you have? I mean, what words?
I have to listen.
What do you?
Let me listen to it again.
Do it. They watched it.
Okay, so I know Chante Washte Hokshila La Kieshtima.
Yep.
Hehepi or
Happy. You washed it.
Happy Washte.
Happy key.
Happy key.
Happy key. So when you would say happy key, you're meaning to like the night, or happy key washte. The night is good. Happy key washte.
And then after that, it's not a word.
Nope, it just goes back into the rhythm. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of you know, how we typically compose the Lakota songs. We always have the rhythm, you know, the harmony, and then you go into a verse, and then it ends like that, and you know, it goes back to the beginning, and you know, we always put the word towards the end of it, and we end with the harmony back into the song. So they're basically saying, you know, good-hearted, or you know, chante washte hokshila, like it could be interpreted
like my
different
love
ways. Yeah, it could be like my love boy, like my lovely little boy, or baby boy. You know, if someone sing, you know, chante washte hokshila, my, you know, my good-hearted little boy, or my sweet baby boy, kind of in a way, is kind of how it could be interpreted.
Close your eyes.
Yep, and so chante washte hokshila aki estima, kind of saying, you know, it's time to go to bed. Close your eyes now.
And the aki estima, or is it an L or an A?
Ake estima, like ke ishtima. It's like to go to sleep again. You know, go back to sleep, or you know, if you're saying, you know, my good-hearted little boy, go back to sleep. You know, you're singing them a lullaby. Say they woke up from a bad dream. You know, and you're saying in Lakota, you're telling them, you know, my good-hearted little boy, or you know, my lovely little boy, you know, go back to sleep now. The night is good. The night is good. Go back to sleep.
Cool.
I mean, that's kind of the simple translation of it. You know, Lakota is kind of hard to specifically translate it because it really just refers to the context around it. So, you know, my interpretation would be like you're singing a lullaby to your son, or you know, it could be genders changed out. It could be your wichinchila, or you know, you would say wichinchila for a little girl. And then you would, but if you were saying like my daughter or my son, you know, that's different. Or if, you know, someone was singing to their little brother or little sister, that could also be changed out. So the way that song, I think, is composed is more for like a general, of course, like any little boy or any little girl, kind of generalized, or any little boy particularly to that song. But if they wanted to change it to little girl, it would be wichinchila. You know, Ante washte wichinchila, aki estima, ha happy kiwashte. The night is good.
Well, should we
but
try?
You were pretty relation on that.
Huh?
You did pretty good.
Thanks.
For yourself. You're learning.
A little bit.
Really,
Chante washte hokšíkilowaŋpi estima, ahe washte we
oh
hiye.
Way oh hiye. Way oh hiye. And you go like less on that last one. Way oh hiye. Way oh hiye. Way oh hiye.
Nice. So you do the yahies 4 times, and then we do the chante washtes twice.
I think so. Something like that.
Cool.
Yeah, well, you basically, what I'm trying to do, like, your goal is to try to do that whole part as a melody first, and then you sing it in Lakota. So I'm basically just trying to do that same melody, but just with no words.
Great.
You know, and that's kind of how you basically form a song. And then we, you know, do it 4 times, and then that'd be your 4 push-ups.
Cool.
Because, you know, the 4, doing it 4 times would be, you know, showing completion. The 4, the number 4. So like powwow songs, ceremony songs, they all kind of go by that rule. They have the melody, and then they have the words. And then, you know, starts over again. Melody, words, 4 times.
4
and
times.
Then the spiritual, you know, that's for purposes. You know, for the powwow sense, that's more or less just, you know, how you basically form a powwow song. So it'd be the 4 push-ups. And they would have the melody, the tune, the words, whatever they're singing about, in whatever language, you know. And then they go back to the beginning. But that's what they all kind of conform to, is the 4 push-ups. Start?
Yeah, should I join you after 1 yahi?
So you would kind of join, like, okay, so I'll do and I'll stop whenever, and I'll tell you when to join in, and then we'll continue on.
Okay.
So I would do ya he hey oh he way hey oh he ya he oh he way hey oh he ya he, and then you would join in.
Okay.
He hey oh he way hey oh he ya he oh he way oh he way oh he. And then I would say chante washte ho, and then you come in on hokšíkilowaŋpi estima. Chante washte hokšíkilowaŋpi estima. Ahepeki washte way oh hiye. Chante washte hokšíkilowaŋpi estima. Ahepeki washte way oh hiye. Way oh hiye. Because whenever the women sing with the men, so the men always carry the main part of the song, and then the women come in to sort of, whenever we say in Lakota, we say Chagwata, that means to add, like the women's beauty to the song. So in a sense, the women are only adding that little bit to it to help give it more beauty. And so then when we say Chagwata, that's what we're talking about. So the women come in, and in the same way in ceremony songs, pala songs, things like that, the women always come in kind of towards the end of the verses or the end of the songs, just to give it that little bit more beauty to it.
Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. I will come in.
Okay. Ya-hie, oh-hie, way, oh-hie. Ya-hie, oh-hie, way, oh-hie. Ya-hie, oh-hie, way, oh-hie. Ya-hie, oh-hie, way, oh-hie, way, oh-hie. Chante washte hokšíkilowaŋpi estima. Ahepeki washte way, oh-hie. Way, oh-hie. Chante washte hokšíkilowaŋpi estima. Ahepeki washte way, oh-hie. Way, oh-hie. Ya-hie, oh-hie, way, oh-hie. Ya-hie, oh-hie, way, oh-hie. Ya-hie, Aki estima he peki washite we o hie chante washite hokshila aki estima he peki washite we o hie we o hie we o hie.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to, I'll send you a link and you can just watch it if you want. Like, it's hard for me to watch myself talk. So when we